Hello and welcome back to Community Connection. I'm Iowa City Mayor Bruce Teague. The pandemic has impacted all aspects of our community, including local businesses. And now more than ever, we need to support our economy. In order to do that, some area organizations have teamed up to help business owners navigate these difficult times. Here to share some of those details on this effort is Kim Casco, President and CEO of the Iowa City Area Business Partnership, formerly known as the Iowa City Chamber of Commerce. Thanks for joining me, Kim.
Thanks for having me, Mayor Teague.
I am super excited to talk to you today, of course, because all of the work that you have been doing through your agency. And so right off the bat, when COVID hit us, there evolved this group called Better Together. And explain to us your involvement with this group.
Sure. So yeah, it indeed all started shortly after the COVID-19 pandemic hit in mid-March. And it started with our organization, the Iowa City Area Business Partnership, and our peer organizations, the Iowa City Area Development Group, Iowa City Downtown District, and Think Iowa City, quickly aligning our marketing and comms staff, because we found that we were each trying to push out information to our members and our investors, and we thought, you know what, this is the same information, let's join forces and get the information out together. So originally it started as we're in this together. And by the end of March, we had a joint website with resources stood up. We had a weekly email going out. We had weekly State of the Community webinars. We had business resource webinars, and we had kind of shared social media posts. And so we really, that was kind of the initial push, is getting all that information out about COVID-19, financial resources, healthcare resources, all of that. So then the question became, what more can we do to help our community through this pandemic besides just sharing out information? And we already had a standing group going at the time that had been meeting for several years. That was our Economic Development Collaboration Group that was made up of our 4 organizations, plus the City of Iowa City, Coralville, North Liberty, the county was a member, the school district, the university, United Way, Community Foundation. So we went to that group and said, listen, we think, besides just sharing information, we need to kind of align our resources to really help this community out right now. And what could that look like? And so we wound up adding some additional folks to that group, realizing there was just a wider cross-section of needs. And so we created a steering committee of sorts that involved that initial group, plus we added the 3 hospitals, we added Kirkwood, we added some banks and CPA firms, nonprofit agencies, local, state, and federal elected officials. And really that's what became our Project Better Together initiative. And really the whole purpose and mission of that group is to help Johnson County recover from the impacts of COVID-19, and also to help build a transformed future for our community that has greater economic diversity, growth, inclusivity, resilience, and well-being for all. So it was both kind of driving short-term relief actions as well as an eye towards recovery and what that might look like. And there's several layers of folks involved. We've got this steering committee that's got about 30 different folks on it that meet weekly every Friday. And we hired Mark Nolte, the former president of ICAD, to really be our project director. And then we've been building just kind of a groundswell of community-wide folks that are kind of become our network of volunteers and our coalition of the willing. And so we're just, driving forward, just, trying to pinpoint where the greatest need is, driving that forward, and then also looking at setting a long-term vision for where our community needs to be.
Well, I'll tell you that Better Together has really done great work in our community. The number one thing that I think you all have done is provide a collaboration where sometimes, in our, businesses may have a hard time coming together to really focus in. But right now, I've been super impressed with all the different entities, both your social agencies and everybody coming together to work collaboratively better together. And so thanks for your involvement and all the things that you're doing. Mark Nolte is definitely heading that up, and I want to send a kudos out to him for all the work that he's doing, and to that steering committee, because I believe that that is a lot of hard work that you all are doing, meeting once a week. So thanks to all of those individuals as well. Now,
no, it's been great and really neat seeing just the dots being connected. You know, we tend to operate in our different functional and industry silos, and it's been really neat just to see the dots being connected across those sectors and across our community. So thank you,
yes,
Mayor Teague, for calling
yes,
that out.
yes, yes. So now you developed Holding Our Own Shop. So, and that's a program that is really used to incentivize people to buy locally. And so I want you to definitely talk about that with us, and also talk about what is the impact that it has on our economy.
Yeah, so this has been just an amazing project. So it started out by us just talking with our bank partners, and our cities, like, back in, it was probably maybe May timeframe, like what can we do to support our businesses? They need, cash and support. How can we best get it to them? And our banks were like, the best thing you can do is just incentivize consumer spending. And so that's exactly what we set out to do. And so we decided to go with a gift card program, and that the incentive would be a $20 gift card for every $150 spent at local businesses that were particularly affected by COVID-19. And so we raised about $135,000 from several of our banks, as well as Johnson County contributed, and City of Iowa City contributed too. Thank you, Mayor Teague, for that. And that amount funded these $20 gift cards, as well as put $5 towards our BIPOC and Immigrant Business Grant Fund, which I'll talk about in a moment. But for the gift cards, we recruited about 165 or so businesses to participate in that, meaning they had a gift card on the site, and we encouraged all of our businesses and residents to simply promote the program. We had shoppers, then submit receipts to us, and they received a voucher to pick a $20 gift card of their choice, and then that gift card got sent to them. And so, as a result of this, I do have some numbers to share out that are just kind of hot off the presses. We just kind of we just finalized the program and are doing the report out now. And so we did generate over $800,000 in economic activity for Johnson County local businesses. So went from that initial investment of $135,000 to over $800,000 in economic activity, which is amazing. We had about 830 shoppers participate in submitting their receipts. The majority was in Iowa, but we had a decent chunk in Illinois, and then really essentially from 20 different states or so. And then lastly, we were able to award a little bit over $50,000 to 33 different BIPOC and immigrant-owned businesses. And so we've just had some amazing accomplishments, and we're so grateful, for our community and their support.
Well, 800,000, wow, that's awesome, because I know that there can't be too many initiatives to try to help support businesses thrive and continue during COVID-19. So that's a great program. And then for the focus to be on the BIPOC population, where they receive some grant fundings for some of the businesses. Can you tell us who qualified and how those funds were distributed?
Yeah, so we tried to keep the eligibility requirements, fairly straightforward and simple, and they included, being a private for-profit business, and that includes sole proprietors, being a BIPOC or immigrant-owned business at least 50%. Located in Johnson County, Iowa, and then they must have experienced losses due to business interruption caused by COVID-19. And now we tried to focus, the grant selection committee really tried to focus the grants on those that kind of fell through the cracks and hadn't received any federal, state, or local funding thus far, in really supporting those businesses, because there found a good number who had fallen through the cracks. Actually, there were over 50 who applied, in total for the grant. And so we were able to give grants ranging from $1,000 to $2,500. And again, that amount was, we were able to give $51,950 is the exact amount to 33 different businesses. And those awards were made in mid-August.
Wow, I'll
And
tell
we've
you.
been continuing to share, what's been neat about that is, we found out about these 50 businesses, and we're trying to still continue to support them by sharing information about additional funding opportunities and other resources they could take advantage of.
Yes, finding funding during this time when your cash flow has been affected during this time has been hard. And so this is one grant that I know those that our recipients are really appreciative to. And Iowa City, in making sure that we have a diverse population in all that we do, this is one way to help ensure that those businesses continue. And I know that Better Together has been working to ensure that there is some focus in on the BIPOC population. What are some continuing efforts that you all anticipate?
Sure. So, I mean, the grants were just the first step. There's a larger effort underway to really look at, how can we improve our support ecosystem in this community for businesses owned by people of color. And so we've actually convened a countywide task force to take a look at this. And the charges, what would it look like if Johnson County, had the space and the programming and the funding needed, for BIPOC businesses to start, grow, and thrive here. So that's a big question, but we're using a framework called the Strategic Doing Framework that actually our peers at ICAD brought to town a few years ago, and that we're using as part of running our Project Better Together efforts. But it really takes a question like that and breaks it down into smaller chunks and concrete actions. And so we've pulled together this task force, and we've initially done what we call like an asset map, figuring out what is going on currently in our community to support these businesses. What's going well, what's not going so well, where are the gaps, and where can we link and leverage some of the assets we have to create new solutions? And what could that look like in terms of, is it funding? Is it programming? Is it space for businesses? One of the biggest expenses for a business is space. And if they can have a space where that's almost like a test space of sorts to test their ideas and their concepts, would that be helpful? And so, we're kind of in the early stages of really just first doing, an assessment of what we have, but then thinking about, possibilities. And we hope, our next meeting is in the next couple of weeks, and we hope to kind of drive forward on what's something concrete, we could do in the near term, and then continue to build that ecosystem out.
Well, it's going to be needed, whatever efforts you all do. And now we're getting into the holiday season. And so, ready or not, here we go, sweaters and all, right?
I know I've got a turtleneck on today, just like
yes, so do I. So do I. So here we are heading into the holiday season, and shopping locally is super important. So we want to make sure that people do understand, the need for shopping locally. And what are some ways that people can do that? And what, shopping locally, what can you tell us about really the need for people during this time to make intentional decisions to support local businesses?
Sure. I mean, it's just so important. It's always important, but especially right now because these businesses are, hanging on by a fingernail. And if we want to retain, vibrant, independently owned shops that we have here, we need to support them now. And these businesses employ people here, our friends and our neighbors and our peers. And so it's just of critical importance. And I know that, especially given COVID-19, and in some ways, shopping online is more convenient, especially if you need to ship a gift or if you don't feel comfortable going out to a store, we get that. But our businesses are doing an amazing job, of not only implementing, safety protocols in their stores, and I think going in some cases above and beyond, guidelines to make sure that their staff and their customers are safe, but also looking at online options for making purchases. So I know a number of businesses have created, if they didn't already have an online, e-commerce site, they've created that, or they're using. I want to give a shout out to the Iowa City Downtown District, who's just been doing an amazing job. That they recently launched an online marketplace for their businesses, and they've also launched a delivery service. And so things like that to make sure that to really help make it easier for folks to support local. The state of Iowa also has a marketplace called Shop Iowa that businesses can use if they don't have an e-commerce site. And I would say, I'd encourage folks that this is an opportunity to give the gift of local this holiday season and do something meaningful. I have my pretty much my whole family is back in the East Coast in New York. And most recently is my mom's birthday, and I decided I wanted to make her a little gift package. So I got something from Willow and Stock, which she's ordered flowers for me before from, as well as Prairie Kitchen, because she loves kitchen stuff. And I packaged it up all fun and nice. And, and she loved it. And it was an opportunity to kind of connect her with, Mom, that flower shop that you get me flowers from, and using it as an excuse to just, doing something special. And I think it just made that gift so much more meaningful. And I think a lot of, shops are looking at that. How can they package things for folks? And it's not just, the shops, but you think of our arts and culture venues and our restaurants, and, support them with getting gift cards and really, purchasing gifts of the gift of experience, for people, because we are going to come out of this. And when we do, we're going to want to be out there.
Absolutely. A lot of our businesses now are transitioning, as you mentioned, to online options for local, for anyone, right, that want to purchase their products. So that is a good option, and I want to speak to Iowa City people and even the greater community that considering to really look at the website that you mentioned, to look at all the businesses, because you might be surprised at what you've been ordering very conveniently online could possibly be right here in our community. And purchasing something locally, the funds stay local, it's your tax dollars. It all goes back into the system and it's recycled. It's super important right now that we do make some intentional efforts to do what we can, because this is our community that we're talking about protecting, and the businesses that have been serving our community forever.
Yeah, and it has such a trickle-down effect. It impacts everything, not just that business that you make the purchase from, but again, going back to, keeps people in our community employed, and it allows us as a community to do more to support, all of our residents. It just makes our community that much stronger in both a quality of life as well as an economic sense.
Yes, yes, yes. All right, so I gotta ask you about your new name. So right before the pandemic, we had this huge celebration and reveal, celebratory event where we get the new name. Formerly, you were known as the Chamber of Commerce, and now you are the Iowa City area. Iowa City Area Business Partnership. Did I get it right?
Yes, Iowa City Area Business Partnership. You got
Iowa
it.
City Area Business Partnership. Iowa City Area Business Partnership. I had to say it about 10 times.
I know, I'm sorry. We initially thought about trying to make it shorter. Instead, we made it, I think, a couple letters longer.
Hey, I appreciate it, because I love that Iowa City name is still in there, even though it is really the area here that makes this your efforts really shine and work for all of us in this area. So tell us a little bit about that name change.
Sure. So, I mean, that started, in early 2019, probably even before that, when our organization set out to develop a new vision for where we want to be, in the next 10 years, and a plan for how to get there. And one of the things that the board and the team determined is that, one of our priorities should be to refresh the image of our organization to better reflect who we are and where we want to go. And that can mean a number of things. It could mean just kind of simply refreshing, or, the font we use for our name, or the color palette, as or going as far as changing the name and logo and whatnot. And so we kind of decided to go down that path to assess that, and engaged, did a variety of kind of research and gathered input from various stakeholders, and our members, and just had a lot of discussions. And so we decided to go down the path of looking at, changing our name. And really, our name had kind of two components to it. It had a geographic designation, the Iowa City area, and then it had kind of just a functional, description, of the org, that being Chamber of Commerce. And so we kind of debated both, fiercely. And with Iowa City area, we felt that it was really important to keep it at, Iowa City area, and that geographic marking was really important for, most of the work we do is internal to this community, but there are times, I'm part of a national network of other chamber peers across the state. And so we thought from that recognition standpoint that was important. And that area, given that we represent all of Johnson County. Now the entity part of the name, Chamber of Commerce, that was a little bit trickier. But when we got feedback, a lot of the feedback that we got was that, well, Chamber of Commerce is kind of sounds outdated. One, the term chamber and the term commerce just both were, a little bit outdated and weren't really resonating with millennials. Like, they just didn't even know. We did some interviews out on the Ped Mall, asking our students, like, do you know what the Iowa City Area Chamber of Commerce is? And like, nope, they like no clue. And so, we wanted to find something that resonated more with our leaders of the future, as well as with diverse audiences that we want to attract. And so, we decided to go the route of really changing that up. And the other part we looked at too, Chamber of Commerce, I think a lot of folks assume that we're part of the U.S. Chamber or some sort of government entity, with that name. And neither of which are true. We wanted to make sure people understood that, no, we're your local, business organization. And so, we decided down the path of changing that. We landed on business partnership, because we felt that that's what best reflected who our members and future members are and how we serve them. So our members are businesses located throughout Johnson County who want to improve their own success and the success of the community in which they live. And we serve them, and we do that by partnering, our businesses, with each other, and by, facilitating those partnerships and those collaborations with our organizations. And I will say that that term partnership has become more critical than ever. I think, since COVID-19 hit, and you look at all the partnerships our organizations have made with each other and have facilitated, and how that's come together. And I think it's just going to be even more critical as we move into 2021. And so that's how we landed on that name. And then the logo, represents interlocking location pins, again, to symbolize partnership between area businesses, as well as that collaborative role that we play in the communities that we serve.
Well, I'm going to have to work on that name a little more. I have to say it 10 more times. But
yeah, we kind of talked about, well, we prefer that people not call us the BP. And so we thought, well, ideally it's business partnership or the partnership. We'll take that.
You all are the Iowa City Area Business Partnership. So super excited about your name change. Thankful for all that you all are doing in our community. Is very evident in some of the things that you've shared. And this is only a small portion of what you've been doing that we even started to highlight today. Thanks again for agreeing to talk to me. Wanted to know if there is anything final you want to share with us today.
No, I think just that, our community is super resilient. Is what I've learned, that the past 6 months through this, both at kind of an individual level, and our businesses. And, we're going to get through this, and it's an opportunity to get stronger, out on the back end of this. And I want to personally thank you, Mayor Teague, for just being an incredible, amazing, inspirational, thoughtful, loving mayor, during this time, both kind of leading the charge on mask wearing initially, and then after the George Floyd killing and the protests we had, leading just really meaningful community conversation and action and dialogue, to like the derecho and helping our community through that, and helping our peers to the north. And so I am just so grateful that we have you in this community. So thank you for all that you're doing.
I appreciate hearing that. I really do. And thanks to all the businesses, because that's where the hard work is, right? Those businesses out there working hard every day, trying to make life better for us here in the community and providing those jobs to people to make a living here. So thanks again.
Our businesses have been
Yes.
amazing.
Yes. Thank you again for joining me today. Really appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
That's our show for today. We're off next week, but we'll be back with another episode of Community Connection. Make sure to get out and vote. Thanks, Iowa City.